Hello, I'm Will Schitterman.
I'm Jake Peterson.
And today we will be discussing the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament held in St. Louis, Missouri at the Scott Trade Center.
Yep, big time conference. Obviously the first conference tournament to come around of the major conferences out there. And it all starts obviously with two favorites, Wichita State and Northern Iowa.
Yeah, because Seth Tuttle, the Larry Bird Trophy of the Year, kind of reminded me a lot of Dermott from last year in the way that he moves in the post and how he gets himself open for open shots, and how good of a post player and how reliable he is, just like Doug was as well. And he also can score from the outside as well. He can shoot a three-pointer every once in a while. And also they're led by Dion Mitchell, who's probably one of the best point guards in the Missouri Valley Conference as far as I'm concerned. And they got Wes Washburn. He's a relatively new face at Northern Iowa. Washburn, the lefty, who can score off the bounce and who can attack the rim very well. Also we have Paul Jesperson, transfer from Virginia, who can light it up for threes, just like Ben Jacobson likes his team to do. And obviously we have Wichita State with Coach Greg Marshall. Marshall, probably one of the best coaches going in the country right now, as far as I'm concerned. And he's led by Fred Van Vliet, Ron Baker, and Darius Carter. Darius Carter is really good at the post game for the Shockers, and Ron Baker can shoot that ball like nobody's business. And Fred Van Vliet is just one of the smartest point guards like that I've ever had the pleasure to watch. He makes the right decisions when needed, and that's what you need from a point guard from a very good team that makes good decisions off the bounce.
Yeah, I like this Wichita State team in particular. I really like Ron Baker. I think he's a terrific guard, and obviously we saw a lot from him against Kentucky last year in the NCAA tournament. It'll be interesting to see what he can bring to the table this year in the NCAA tournament for the Shockers. Van Vliet, I think he's a solid point guard. I think he's the second best point guard, just right behind Monte Morris at Iowa State. I think this is a very good Wichita State team. The one thing though that they've lacked now for the last couple years, is solid forward play. I think this is something that Wichita State, they don't have that guy that can take it to the rim and be efficient with it. And that's something I think that this Wichita State team has been missing. In some of those games when you get a team that defends well around the perimeter, they don't really have then that resource to take it down low and take it to the rim. They're not exactly a team that's going to mismatch you in any way, shape, or form. That's how George Washington beat them. And that was how Northern Iowa beat them at Northern Iowa. So, I think when you look at this Wichita State team, I think they have a very good chance of making a deep run, but they have to end up in the right region and have the right matchups to be able to do that, because otherwise if they're to play a team that can defend the perimeter well, like Oklahoma, for example, they would have trouble against a team like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Wichita State is kind of like your typical Missouri Valley Conference teams. Live by the three or die by the three.
Yeah.
Because especially in the Missouri Valley Conference, especially in the Midwest, they rely a lot on those shooters to score most of their points, and with that, they lack the post game, just like you mentioned earlier. But Clancy Early, who came out of Wichita State last year, is now at the Knicks. He had a pretty good career for the Shockers and was pretty clutch for them. And I think his presence has been missed this year, even despite Wichita State still having a good record and still doing pretty well as far as I'm concerned. But they definitely have missed his presence on the low block. And then now we're going to be talking about the sleepers of the Missouri Valley Conference. We have, in my opinion, I think it's Indiana State, folks. Indiana State has a really good, has a pretty good coach in Greg Lansing. Greg Lansing knows a lot about the game of basketball and has been very successful at Indiana State for the Sycamores. And Devontae Brown, who's a pretty good player for the Sycamores, has done a pretty good job of scoring the ball and getting into the three-point arc area and knocking down those threes. And then they also have a pretty talented freshman who's playing pretty impressively right now, and he's one guy that you're gonna have to watch out for in the next up to coming years.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of teams that you just never really can pinpoint a sleeper team on this Mo Valley Conference. It can be any team on any given night. It's part of what makes the Mo Valley oddly tough here and there. You know, I think there's a lot of teams to be aware of. I think you never can really sleep on a team. Maybe Drake can make a deep run into the tourney. You know, maybe someone like Indiana State, as Will said, that can make a deep run into that Little Mo Valley tourney. You know, I think it's really tough to pinpoint a team though when you have the two most dominant in that conference, which are Northern Iowa and Wichita State. They're just light years ahead of everyone else behind them, and that's something that it just makes it really tough to pinpoint a sleeper in this conference. And but you never know. I've seen crazier things before. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and especially what Jake mentioned earlier, the Missouri Valley Conference is probably one of the most unpredictable conferences in America because all you need is for one team to get hot and they're like boom like that, and they're like right in contention for a potential for a potential berth in the championship game on Sunday afternoon. And also they've had some pretty good success, even though they lost Creighton a couple years ago, which was a huge loss for the Valley, and because Creighton had like 16 conference title championship tournament titles in St. Louis, and they really kind of had to get used to life without Creighton. But like Wichita State has kind of slid into that role of where Creighton was a couple years ago as being the dominant force in the Missouri Valley Conference. And now we will be discussing the predictions for the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. Jake, who do you got?
I'm going to go with Northern Iowa. I think this is a Northern Iowa team that has enough versatility to knock off Wichita State in the finals. I think this is a team that can beat you inside and out, and that's something that I think Wichita State's not going to have the advantage of playing on a neutral court. So I got the Panthers in this one.
I definitely agree. I'm going with the Panthers as well. Yeah, because obviously it's not Charles Koch Arena in the Roundhouse where Wichita State plays, and Wichita State seem like they are always tough to beat at their place, but it's completely different when it's at a neutral site. And I think the Panthers will show up ready, and Ben Jacobson will have his boys ready to probably beat the Shockers on the final day, and will probably be being the automatic bid for the Missouri Valley Conference going into the NCAA tournament. And Wichita State will probably be an at-large bid.
Yeah. Stay tuned for the next video. It'll be on the Big East Conference tournament, and we'll continue to move along here with the 7 major conferences in college basketball.
Thank you very much for your time.
Power this off. How do you stop it?